Hey everybody, and welcome to the second week of our brand new Next Lit Chat. This is Amy Evans, and in case you missed the news, NA Lit Chat has changed over a little bit. We are now going to be Next Lit Chat, and that's a bit of an expansion from when we were only talking about new adult literature. As all of you guys on the chat know, new adult literature is that time in your life that is full of drama and excitement, and it takes place usually between the end of high school and college. But when we stop to think about what all of us on the production team and a lot of frequent chatters and people in our community really liked about that time in life is how many changes you go through. And truthfully, it's not just about the changes that you go through in college that are so interesting to write about. So we've expanded it to include any coming-of-age story, whether that means a young adult coming-of-age story or a more mature adult coming-of-age story, because as we all know, there might be a friend or two, or maybe yourself, you might have had a second adolescence somewhere in your late 20s or your 30s or your 40s or your 80s, God bless you. And there's room for all of it now as we explore all the different ways that you can come of age and have these dramatic and poignant life moments. So I am so excited to talk to everybody on the air tonight. We've got a lot of our production team here. We've got Lindsay Lewis. Hey, Lindsay.
Hey.
How are ya?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Lindsay has been sharing really awesome pictures behind the scenes, and we're all going to try to share a little bit of our personal.
I'm queuing them up.
I'm failing at this. We're all going to try to share a little bit of our personal moments from these kinds of coming of age times, and we hope that all of you guys out on Twitter and listening will do the same. We want to see snippets of your journals. We want to see pictures from your proms or your weddings, or in my case, I'm trying to get one for you guys of the night that I met my husband, because that was fun. And we want to see how all this ties together for your writing. We've got Kat Vansel here. Hey, Kat, what's up?
I'm here.
You're here, and you just told us a really funny story about an outfit for when you were a teenager that stood out in your mind. You want to share that now that we're on the air? Because I love that.
I'm still getting the photo for it, but if you were like me in high school in 2000, there was this weird trend of the really big leg skater girl jeans, boys' sweatshirts that were considerably way too big, and Gilligan's Island's hats. And I have photos of myself wearing one of those at Disneyland, which is ridiculous, but was super cool back then.
All right.
For sure.
So I'm loading it onto the computer so that I can post it for everyone to see.
I'm tweeting. And we've got EJ Wesley. EJ, can you say hey and tell us a little bit more about Next Lit Chat?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just so excited to see this picture of Kat. I can't even express it. And any embarrassing photos that anybody on Twitter might have, just so I can publicly humiliate you, of course. And I've only
been publicly humiliated once in my whole life, so.
Well, it may happen tonight. Next Lit Chat, Amy, you did a very excellent job of describing that, especially like on the fly. So Amy, like we've not had Amy host for a while, and so it's been awesome having her back tonight. Feels like the old gang's back together. The best thing to do for a description of Next Lit Chat is to go to nextlit.com. That's sort of where our chat is now sort of housed and where we hang out. But the definition we use there is, at their cores, books that aim to capture the transition between adolescent and adulthood. Simple as that. So we view coming-of-age fiction as a niche encompassing 3 different categories of literature. We talk about upper YA, new adult fiction, what we've been calling that, and then, genre adult fiction or commercial adult fiction types of things. Really the only requirement at all, or it's not really even a requirement, but the only sort of boundary we put on this is that we like to talk about these stories that sort of define this weird transition from teendom to adulthood. So that's really all it's about, and really the only change from old school NA Lit Chat is just that we're trying to be more inclusive. We want to talk about broader subjects. As Mr. Chris Fox, who we'll get to here in a second, I think he's lurking on air with us as well, pointed out last week, is we've always talked about YA fiction. Like if you wrote new adult fiction, chances are you either grew up loving young adult fiction or you still love young adult fiction. That's where the roots of that fiction started. So it's really nothing more than just an official, hey, we're going to talk about this for real now. So.
Well, I love that it's more inclusive, and one of the reasons that I was so excited to jump on this tonight is because I spent some time at my daughter's school today. They had to do a publishing party for their personal narratives, and it was so interesting to hear what moments they chose to talk about. They had to choose a small moment story that changed their life somehow, a moment where they had to be brave, or where they had to do something they'd never tried before, or a moment that was like horribly upsetting, and they had to live with it. So that made me really think about what we were here to do and what we were here to talk about. And I look forward to sharing a few of those examples and seeing what you do to share those moments in your work. But Chris Fox, what's up?
Hello. I took a break from streaming today, so here I am.
I'm so happy to hear your voice.
Hi. Yes, hello, this is me.
Yay.
But I will not be sharing any intimate pictures of my formative years as a teenager because they are all embarrassing and no one deserves to see them. Yes, boo me all you want. I can be the bad person. I'll be the evil villain.
So that's the guy whose avatar is a fox. Like, come on.
Exactly. I get to hide behind this nice little lovely fox image.
That's so internet of you.
I'm not really embarrassed of any of the photos I had of myself.
I am.
Like,
I was a monster.
Awesome, at the time.
I was not awesome. I've been a nerd my whole life, and it's only gotten worse, but in a cool way.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's not, like, a problem.
Yeah, like, I'm the cool kind of nerd now, but I was definitely not then. So I do not weep for those years.
At all.
When Amy and I were in school, they didn't have talkies. We didn't have talking movies and stuff. Much less the internet. We couldn't hide behind an avatar, Chris.
What are these speaking movies you speak of?
We didn't have avatars to hide behind when Amy and I were there.
Is this what they call a slideshow?
It's so terrifyingly true. Oh my gosh.
There was no Photoshop. Like, there was none of that.
Yes, there was.
It wasn't.
Oh, wait, you were? Oh.
Yeah, in my day, Kat.
When I was in high school, there was. It was great.
The closest thing we had were, like, glamour shots. Like, that was,
Yes, I worked for them and had photos taken by them.
Ooh, bonus points to anyone on Twitter who happens to have a glamour shot. If you have a glamour shot of yourself, my God.
Oh my God. Share, please.
Yeah. Please if I have any of them, like, actually physically here, they might also be at my parents' house. That would be unfortunate.
All right, everybody's going to Kat's parents' house tonight because apparently that's where all the good stuff is hiding.
That was the funny thing. One of my first real kind of retail jobs was actually working for Glamour Shots.
I don't even know what to say about that. I know. It's so incongruous with everything
I was
else
hired
that I know
as
about
a makeup artist, and then I ended up getting roped into being a photographer, and then I was working for the front desk, and then I realized I hadn't seen my boss in 3 weeks, and I was the only person who worked there.
You are actually Glamourcraft.
So
you are the CEO.
You are. That is the classic coming of age story, right? Like getting thrown into a situation that you're woefully prepared for and having to somehow pull it off. I mean, that is hysterical, and I would completely read that book.
Really?
Yeah.
That just basically describes pretty much all of my being an adult.
Well, I can appreciate that. I think we've all gotten thrown into conversations or situations where we weren't maybe ready, but we figured out a way to make it happen. And I think that what I would love to hear from each of you, you all write about different, ages, but typically your characters are a little bit younger at least than you are now. So can you give us one example of something that was a personal coming of age moment that made it into one of your books, and how did you change it and why did you choose it? I want to hear from all of you guys about this, and I want to hear from everybody in the audience in Twitterland about it as well.
Okay, age moments that ended up in my book.
Yeah, I don't tend to write stuff from my own life into my books. I try to make it as fictional as possible, and more of the emotion of those moments will be there, but not the actual moment itself. But in a few of my books, a lot of the characters struggle with mental illness and depression, and that's something that I still struggle with. So I like showing that realistically, as opposed to how most media represents that, where it's I am sad, I am lonely. Oh no, that's not how it works, guys. So I like to just show a struggle, which has been like the predominant years of my life after 20. So that's one story that is sort of in there, but not anything firsthand.
But that's kind of like a reoccurring theme, right?
Yeah, like you see it frequently in both the works in progress that I have and in Star Sailor. So it's not necessarily like the theme, but it's a factor in a lot of the characters' lives that they do struggle with problems and they don't know what to do about it because it's complicated.
So you feel like in coming of age, there isn't really that requirement to wrap up all of the issues with a nice little bow.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you like to explore them with a little bit more depth than that.
Life
Definitely.
is a screwed up place.
Yeah, because like when I was 14 through like 16, I was told, you're going to graduate at 18, life is going to be magical, you'll go through college and get a job. When I hit 18 and graduated, I'm like, man, I'm so ready for the world. Nothing like that happened. Not a single thing went to plan. And it's like, well, so this is what life is. I understand now.
Can I second that whole thing? I keep waiting to get to that moment where I'm an adult.
Yeah, and I don't think that moment
we were all told we had to grow up to be.
So someone said that moment exists, and I'm not sure it does.
I actually don't think it does. I have this theory that, you always look at people that are older than you, whether they're older than you in high school or older than you in college or, your parents' age, and you think that age feels a certain way, and then you get there and you realize you don't feel all that different. And this just keeps happening, and the bar just keeps moving. And, sometimes when I have a good day writing and I'm writing about somebody in their teens, I have to remind myself I'm old enough to have a beer. Like all of these things, like age is a little bit more of a cycle, I think. And it becomes very poignant when you're writing about it and trying to draw on, if not those direct experiences, at least the emotional experiences. Lindsay, you had a couple of fun things to share. If you had to share one of your journal entries that I might have just seen from your teens, what would it say?
Okay, we're not going to share that one. That was really funny, though.
It was really funny.
So actually, I pulled up, I'm going to do my best to read my own handwriting really fast. But, or maybe I'll just summarize. I'll just summarize. You don't need to see it. But it's actually really cute. This is I was given this journal for my 18th birthday from one of my girlfriends who's still one of my best, dear, dear friends. And so a lot of this is like the first couple weeks of college and then some a little bit after. But this is dated September 6, 2000. So it's my first probably full week of college. I was at Oakland University, Rochester Hills, Michigan. But it's basically just saying that, like how much I'm enjoying the freedom of being at school. It says I can go out and do whatever I want and not think twice about it or about answering to anyone but myself. I just have to chill out sometimes and make sure, remember how important my academics are and keep myself in check. I'll do my fair share of studying, but I have to remember to have fun and party. Of course, not too much. Which reminds me, I'm going to MSU this weekend, and then I start a whole tangent about how I'm going to actually go and party. But, it's just kind of like that little moment where it's like, I'm here, I'm finally here, I'm finally on my own. I have to remember to be a good girl and go to class, but also to live it up because these are those years. Mm-hmm. So I kind of thought that was a cool page to actually, I just opened it up. So that's pretty cool. I do have I was going to share my kind of what I write about with my coming of age is in my Breaking the Rules series, Morgan, my main character, it's very important to her that she have her own job and that she make her own way. She was raised under her parents' thumb and under her parents' checkbook, and they paid for everything for her, so she had to do whatever they said because she didn't have many freedoms, including financial freedom. Mm-hmm. And so this series starts with her just completing grad school. It's in her first job, and she's, in her own apartment that she's paying for, yada, yada, yada. And I took that directly from my life. I met my now ex-husband, but moved to New York at the age of 19 after meeting him and my summer job. And the biggest, most freeing moment was telling my parents that they weren't going to pay for anything, that I wasn't going to accept any money from them. Thus, I was 19 and could make my own decisions for myself because I was going to be providing my own life and having a job. So that was that was a huge moment for me. not being guided by my parents' checkbook, and I think it's huge that that totally carried over into some of Morgan's personal strength. So
you were sort of able to really capture that feeling of, digging your way out of financial but also emotional dependence.
Yeah.
And that's a huge theme in coming-of-age literature.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually I just read a book over the weekend, and I'm searching my brain for the title. It's one of Chelsea M. Cameron, who's a favorite, an old friend of ours here at Lit Chat. It's one of the big struggles of her character, Max, is that his parents wanted him to take over the family business, and he actually went to college. His struggle was dealing emotionally with the fact that he went to college to do something else other than like HVAC or something that his dad was doing, and that was his character's main struggle, was deciding to move on his life with actually getting an education and having to pay for it himself, because his parents actually did not want the education. They wanted him to go right into a career, which isn't what we hear a lot.
Right, but it makes sense, I guess, in that particular context, because there was a family business.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about writing, and I think that this is particularly good and poignant for coming of age, is that you can sort of spread your issues out among a whole bunch of different characters.
Yeah.
Totally.
I was just, after having you ask us that question, I was like, I really haven't included most of what I experienced in the books that I have that are out yet, but they are in ones that I'm working on.
So Jelly Bean Kisses actually came from a lot of my old journals, not directly, but we joke a lot about like love triangles and in YA romance, but they exist in life, whether it's because you and a friend are crushing on the same person, or maybe you're feeling a little bit torn between two different people, and there's a lot of guilt thrown at people for that. But I think it's pretty natural when you're younger and have no reason to make any kind of permanent decisions, and you have a lot of time to spend getting to know people. You did? How did you do it?
I couldn't choose between two girls, and eventually one girl learned that I liked the other girl, and she's like, "What the hell, man? Like, why couldn't you just choose one of us?" And I'm like, "I don't know how to talk to people," and then it just ended.
Did it work out with the one?
No, it didn't work out at all. It was a complete tragedy.
Yeah, 90% of the conflicts I had in high school were some chick was pissed at me for something I had that they wanted.
Ooh.
Whether that be like a personal attribute or a boy or attention or, I don't know, being a soprano in choir. And I was just like, what on earth? Can't we just be, It's not like I walked around going, look what I have and you don't. I was always at the confused end of, why are you being mean and hitting me?
That's not really nice, actually.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a great experience.
I don't know what to say.
And Kat just made it real, right?
Sorry!
We turn this into a bullying cast, because I feel like we need to do this.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic.
It is, but we should do that. That's a good idea for a topic.
It is a good one. It's a good idea for a topic. Well,
but tonight...
Not tonight. Tonight we're talking about...
Tonight I'm still waiting for these stupid photos to load.
I feel like we need to play the Debbie Downer music for Kat now.
No. So what I started to tell you is that with Jelly Bean Kisses, I had a boy put a goose in my car to get back at me for breaking a date with him in high school. And at the time, it was kind of like horrifying because I was worried about the goose, and I didn't really like that it had pooped all over my seats. But when I was looking for an opening for this little romantic comedy, that was the scene that popped into my head, and it's probably like the most direct thing that I have written that comes from my life, but most people don't actually believe it. Like, no, really, nobody would.
How did he get a goose? How do you do that?
You lure it in there with bread and tacos.
No, Apple Jacks. There are Apple Jacks all over the front seat of my car.
Yeah, that makes sense.
He went to the
photos. Why are you taking so long?
He went to the pond by my house, and he caught a goose, and he brought it over, and he knew that I usually left my car unlocked, and he stuck it in there, and I went out the next morning and, freaked out because there was this huge white thing sitting in the back of my Toyota Corolla.
We are still talking about a goose, right?
We are still talking about a goose, yeah.
I asked Twitter earlier. I said, "We're asking, is there anything from your coming of age experience that's made it into your fiction?" Alan Levy says, "Too much to count, though more in people I knew and less in what I write about myself." Which I think I do a lot of that too. Like mine's more like voyeur kind of stuff that I did.
I have one experience that I know is in one of the books I have out.
Miss Molly writes, tweeted that I wrote a karaoke bar like the one I used to frequent with my friends and then boyfriend into my second book. And settings too. Like I can totally relate to settings. I do that often. So those are just a couple things from Twitter people are throwing out. People are making fun of my Luke Perry-esque sideburns, but you know.
Whatever works, man.
Yeah, exactly. The chicks weren't complaining back in 1996, I'll tell you that.
I guarantee it.
Right? Sorry.
So, EJ, what is one of the more, you said settings, like, are there any settings that you wrote about that played a significant role in your actual time?
Absolutely.
In your, what were they?
So, definitely. So, like, my little hometown I grew up in was like 1,000 people, basically. I graduated high school with 32 people. Was my senior class, and I went to college there my first year. So we had a community college there, and so I went there my first 2 years of college and got my associate's degree. And it's kind of surreal, like to go to college in your hometown. Like I know there are probably people on Twitter that, especially if it's a really small hometown. We owned a couple of houses, and so I took over the house next to my parents. I didn't actually I lived at home, but didn't have to live at home, kind of thing. So it was convenient, but that definitely influenced like my novella series. Like the main character in there lives in a really tiny town in rural Texas. I grew up in a tiny town in Oklahoma, and just kind of I had a very similar experience to her. Like that's at an age like that 18-year-old transition where you kind of want to start drinking and doing some things and branching out. Like I mean I wasn't the wildest kid in high school, and it's really weird. Like it's weird doing that in a town where everybody knows your business. Like, and it kind of, I don't think it jades you necessarily as a human being, but it kind of, you learn to either say screw it, I don't care, or you care a bunch. And I was the former. Like I said screw it, I don't care. And so that was really like kind of spread my wings type of time in my life that I really just kind of learned to be my own adult and just say, I'm going to do what I want. And my character in that series is very much that way too. Like she's kind of at this point where she's like, you know what, you can, razz me because I have, spiked purple hair or whatever. Doesn't matter. I do what I want.
Right.
So definitely.
I do what I want.
I do what I want. Exactly.
And that's true for me as well, because I grew up in a pretty small town where everybody knew everybody else's business and you were supposed to care what people thought. And my characters tend to come from places like that and places that are somewhat homogenous, which is another factor that I think really affected the way that I grew up, because there were so many kids that I grew up with that just didn't realize that not everybody was like that. Not everybody was like they were. And, there was a whole big world of different kinds of people to get to know. And my parents were really clear about that. They, had all different colors and, nationalities of friends, and they kept in touch with people from lots of different places. But not everybody I know was raised in a house like that. And I really felt the need to get out and explore. And, I've lived in a lot of places since I moved away from where I went to high school, but there are a lot of people that have stayed there. And the benefit is, they have some really amazing lifelong friendships that I, have in theory, but I don't have as part of my everyday life. And so I really like to explore both sides of that. I like to write about characters that stayed put and see how that might have gone, the road not traveled by myself, but I also really identify with characters who are itching to get out and explore different things. And, both of those, I had the nostalgia factor of seeing other people stay put, but I really wanted to leave.
That's funny. Like, we should do a small town chat, because, like, my whip I'm working on right now is exactly the second scenario you said, that it's this kid that grew up in this, again, tiny town in North Carolina, and he's road tripping to college with his grandfather, so he's getting out, like, and sort of that adventure of that, like, getting out. I wanted to, Patricia Lynn on Twitter said that, I asked what was the most difficult sort of transition you had to make or lesson you learned in your younger years. And she said that pissing people off wouldn't be the end of the world. And I wanted to mention that because that was sort of what I was trying to get at earlier that I learned as well. It's like that, you know, you can be an individual and some people are not going to like it. And some
either she said that before, I had just strange deja vu.
She might have. I don't know. Maybe it's come up before.
But yeah, I had that same like experience with EJ, like where I could either really care a lot or not care at all. And for the longest time, I cared so much that it was just constant anxiety. It's like, no one's gonna love me because I can't impress everyone. But it's like, I guess one of those coming of age transitions that I had was just like within the last couple of years, I'm just like, I don't care what you think. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And then some people are just like, you're weird. I'm like, does it look like I care? And they're like, no, it doesn't look like. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. I got it.
Well, my question for all you guys is that just a symptom, like a universal symptom of high school? Like, it is a small bubble, and being the same or like fitting in is so important during those years. It feels so important.
I think fitting in is definitely a universal thing, but I don't think it's necessarily a small bubble sort of situation because I went to a school with 5,000 people.
Yeah.
So, there's just so many people that to blend in makes you noticeable because, like, all the popular kids hung out with each other. So they had their own, like, microcosm within the larger spectrum of school. So you found those groups within the larger mass of people that you could belong to.
I didn't try and fit in. Like, I was the way I was, and if people liked that, they could come hang out with me. I was one of the, like the trendsetter kids. Like, I'd decide something was awesome, and then it was awesome.
Yeah, I had the opposite of that power.
Yeah,
whatever I was doing was not the cool thing to be doing.
Yeah, like
I guess I just literally gave no fucks.
I wish I had that skill back then. Like, I always did weird, different stuff, but it was not seen as, like, a tastemaker sort of thing. It was like, what is that kid doing? Why is he always just listening to, like, moody music? I'm like, but it's good, guys. You should listen to it. No, we're going to listen to this.
Dude, all the music when I was in high school sucked. Like, seriously. It's terrible.
So, are there stories that, like, is there something that now that we're having this conversation all of a sudden stands out to you as, like, something that now you want to write about and you want to explore and you think that it's a good topic for any kind of a coming-of-age book? You want to give us a highlight, Lindsay, of something that maybe just is popping into your head that you're starting to think about fictionalizing?
I'm just really loving looking through all these spring break pictures, and
I just got to spring break too in my
but you know what? Here's something. Okay, so I don't know if it would be something that would work, but I mean, I guess you could kind of parallel it to a struggle of fitting in with everyone or doing what you think is right, which is the total coming of age. Like, okay, do I need to be an adult at this moment and actually do what I think is right, or should I just, like, go with the pack and hope that it doesn't end up on Facebook for future bosses to see? But on this specific spring break that I just actually posted about, it was like, you know, we stayed in an all-inclusive or whatever, and one night was a wet t-shirt contest, which of course you're in Florida, so like that just happened. But even though I had probably the biggest boobs in my whole little group of friends, I was the only girl that did not participate in that because I was dating my boyfriend who was in New York at the time, and I left and went on spring break with all my college friends, and so I didn't feel right participating because I felt like that was wrong or whatever, because, like, here's my boyfriend at school and I'm already down having fun, and I didn't think that was a cool thing. But I was the one that normally showed all that sort of stuff but did not participate because I was like, you know what, I don't think that's right. So
I participated in one wet t-shirt contest ever, and I ended up wearing my friend's boyfriend's t-shirt.
How about you, Chris? Did you ever do a wet t-shirt contest?
It was for charity.
What?
What?
Okay.
I was also really drunk, so it probably seemed like an awesome idea.
I will
I
say,
literally walked through the group of people until I found somebody who had a white shirt that just so happened to be my friend's boyfriend. And I'm like, hi, can I have your shirt so I can compete in the
Is
competition?
this like some sort of rogue March of Dimes or something that you're part of? They're like, what charity is doing wet T-shirt contests, and how can I support them?
It was at Ren Fair, so who knows?
Okay, that just totally.
Cat.
Okay, so like
Why is that not
all
your
of
Twitter
my
bio,
like
Kat?
from age 16 till I got married, I did historical reenactment. Like that was what I did. So all of my college experiences were not at college because we didn't have a campus or, dorms or fraternities or anything. Was at Ren Fair.
We have Kat's new Twitter bio. Did a wet T-shirt contest at Ren Fair. You will be the most popular human being on the planet.
what is Ren Fair, by the way? What is that?
A Renaissance.
Renaissance Fair, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, dear. Oh, Cat. Oh, my God.
And it was a Boinkle the Moose t-shirt.
Oh, dear.
They were.
Oh.
The mead was flowing that day.
I will pay for pictures. I will pay.
Actually, it's something that happens at the one event every year, and cameras are prohibited for, reasons.
But-
Sorry, no photos of that exist.
Oh, man.
However, I did finally get the stupid photos of me at Disneyland in terrible clothes.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to you posting those. But going through pictures, like personal pictures, makes for some really great story inspiration, like whether you want to attach a location. I don't know. I have the most random stack of pictures sitting here, and I found, like, my junior prom picture, and I was totally, just starting dating the guy that I went with, and he was probably, like, the first love kind of a guy, and this picture is hysterical, and, I still kind of know him a little bit, but it totally takes you back to the way that you felt at the time, and I wonder how that's changed with people who are coming of age today when, phones are ubiquitous and cameras are ubiquitous. Like, do those moments stand out in the same way? Do the pictures draw you in the way that, like, this one single picture, that's on paper that is not accessible to me until I go digging in a box upstairs, that really does draw me into that exact moment? I don't know. You guys are a little bit younger than me. What do you think?
As someone who grew up with primarily digital pictures because analog was way too expensive, I did this photo project called Photo 365. The idea was you take a single photo for every single day of a year, and then you have just a whole year in photos. I did that, and I can tell you that I remember that year more fondly than I do any other year because it's the only year I ever did it, and I have like photo recollection of not necessarily what happened, but the feeling of what happened throughout the entire year because there's like documented evidence that that indeed happened.
But it's limited. It's like haiku, right? Because it was one picture a day. Not like right now where you look at the pictures that I took this week and every day has like 60 pictures and I'm probably never going to go through and half of them are
Indeed,
repeats.
and like you say you'll never go through them, but there's that one day, just like that photo album that your mom brings out at freaking family events that she's like, oh, look at you naked in the bathtub. Those photos exist forever, and one day you're going to go back and look at them, and I know this because my friends do it sometimes on Facebook. You'll see like a random like on a picture that's like 10 years old, and it's like, who's looking through this picture? It was posted years ago, and yeah, people do it. It's like, it's a thing. These photos are building up a history. The bigger question I would ask for like really young people, what does the world look like when Snapchat, which says photos are temporary and don't exist more than 10 seconds, what is their past going to look like to them? That'll be an interesting question about like 5-10 years.
Well, but don't you, I mean...
Everything on the internet is forever, even if it tells you it's not. They're lying. It's just future blackmail.
But I feel like also with Snapchat, like when people get snaps that they like, then they upload them somewhere else where they are more permanent, but it's still like making like this weird fabricated recording that doesn't necessarily go anywhere that's material, which I think is what you're trying to say, Chris. But
I mean, it's just like material is what material is made for, and some people define material in different ways. I don't take a whole lot of pictures of myself, but I also don't need a whole lot of pictures of myself. But at the same time, like, I stream video games. The reason I stream those is because I have fun doing them, and every once in a while I was like, how did I feel that one time I did that one thing? And I can go back and look at that. So I get to define what is material to me.
Absolutely. And as long as you have a classification system or a strategy for sorting through them and finding them again, then it is meaningful, even if you have a ton of data.
Exactly.
What do you guys think about, one of we talked a little bit about how coming of age sometimes means that you stop caring about what people think, whether that's your parents or kids in your high school or people in town. And in other cases, it means that you start caring about what people think because perhaps you're trying to become more adult or you're trying to, win somebody's heart or a job or an apartment. How do you find a way to keep the dichotomy in a book where you have to show change for characters, that is realistic enough to keep people going, but dramatic enough to make them not stop reading, if that makes sense? Like, where do you draw the line between fact and fiction in your own personal, moments that you decide to share?
I would say that if the moment in your factual history is not as dramatic as you would like to be, that's where you can make those little tweaks. Like, there's a lot of, like, most of my life is, like, again, contemplation, looking at other people doing all these things, and, like, well, that's weird. So how do I write that? Well, the way I go about it is I have the character that I'm trying to define that way be very contemplative. They're thinking about all these things that are happening, but the situations are more dramatic. It's like, oh, that person just got shot. What would I do if I got shot? And the progression is eventually they get into that situation where they're going to have to make those decisions immediately rather than just think about them.
Okay, so you up the tension by upping the stakes, but you start with a kernel of truth.
Exactly, and for me, that's like, I do fantasy and sci-fi, so naturally the things are going to get more complex as the story moves along. For a romantic situation, it would be a similar thing, though. It's like, how would I feel if I got into this weird situation with my girlfriend, and then, oops, she cheated on me. How do I feel now? Because I have to think about it now. It's just, at least for me, and this is just my style of writing, it's all about using an example, thinking about the example, and then presenting the example directly to your character and letting them figure it out, because you want to remove your brain from the character's brain, because you and the character are two different people.
Okay, that makes sense to me. What about you, Lynn?
I'm actually, I don't know. I was just listening to Chris, and that is a really great example. I think I just take things directly from my life and just place them in without doing the thinking first, and that would actually be a great way to tweak it to improve my writing. I'm actually like taking in what he wrote and went, oh, or what he said, and it was like, oh, I think I need to do that from now on.
Yeah, and it's not like there's no value in like taking your actual life experience. It was just like, for me, I just don't do that. But if you have really interesting stories, if you're just that kind of person, those stories can work, and you only need to tweak them if it feels boring. Like, if you read the story and you're like, that was a little boring, I know it's my story, but it's not the character's story. That's when you can start messing with things and try to make it more interesting. Like, maybe that moment that you embarrassed yourself in front of your crush, all you did was like you said a weird phrase. You meant to say like, oh, I like you, and you said poop noggins, and everyone's like, what the heck did you say? That's the real story. But the fake story, you say the awkward thing, and you're like, oh no, that was awkward, and then you slip on a banana peel. Oh no, more awkward, funny, haha. And it's just, all of fiction is about telling a story, but in a way that people can more immediately relate to it, and heightening attention or making things more dramatic than life actually is usually does that.
See, this is a real life example of what Chris just said for anyone that wants to use this. So I am probably one of the world's biggest klutzes. The guy that I'm dating actually thinks that's an adorable attribute for me, so thank goodness for him. But I was telling him one of like the klutziest moves that I had done that day, and I had made pot roast in my crock pot form. When he comes over on Wednesdays, it's Wednesday date night. So I was telling him my like Lynn's fail of the day and like the stupid thing. I think that was the day I fell up my stairs or something stupid. And while I'm talking to him, I'm plating pot roast. And so I had taken the big pot roast out of the crock pot with like some kind of fork or something. And while I'm talking to him, it like I let go and it splattered all over my wall, and all down my shirt while I'm talking to him, and I just froze. And then I started laughing, and he was like, "You just dropped the pot roast, didn't you?" And I'm like, "Uh-huh." He's like, "It's all over you, isn't it?" And I'm like, "Yep." And he started dying. He's like, "Of course, only you." So I go and I change my shirt. I come back, and I'm talking to him, and like, plop, I do it again. And he's like, "You just did it again, didn't you?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'll be right back." I had to change my shirt twice because I'm just a klutz, and thank goodness he thinks it's adorable. So that's kind of a little bit
Exactly. It's one of those interesting stories that transitions perfectly because sure, okay, we can all relate to dropping food. We can't all relate to dropping food twice in the same exact manner. Still super embarrassing both times. That's the story.
And I was pissed because after I put on like when I had my first wardrobe change, he was like, "Oh, you look really cute," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." And then I dropped it, and then I didn't get a "you look really cute" the second time. So maybe he was over the wardrobe changes. I don't know.
So Simcoe has already offered to Photoshop a cat at a Renaissance fair. I'm going to vote we throw in like a Lindsay dropping pot roast into this picture somewhere.
Totally.
If you're listening, Michael, make this magic happen.
Make it happen, Simcoe.
You know why I had to borrow a shirt from somebody else? Because I literally do not own any white shirts except for the one that goes with my Hogwarts costume.
I thought Kat was going to say because she literally was not wearing a shirt.
Right. She was like, I was topless, so I had to borrow a shirt.
No, see, that's the difference between her fact and her book. In the book, she's not actually wearing a shirt. She's like, by the way, can I borrow that? I got to do a wet t-shirt contest now.
So I got to cover up a little bit.
I got to cover up to cover down.
I've got to robe myself.
But yeah, the only experiences that I have that I've used in my books is actually for one of my male characters, and it's the issue with you're an adult now, but you look like you're 14 still, and getting people to take you seriously and not card you for rated R movies or ask you if you're going to the prom every time you have to go buy formal wear for anything.
Okay.
So I asked Twitter earlier, I said, how did pop culture influence your teen or young adult formative years? I said, any movies or bands you lived. So I've got
Josie and the Pussycats?
Josie and the Pussycats. I've got Green Day here.
Like the movie, not...
Yeah.
Okay. I literally dyed my hair that color because I thought it was awesome.
Of the Wild says... my friend's Metallica CDs brought me into metal. My dad's King Crimson albums brought me into prog rock. So we have a couple bands thrown out there. What about you guys?
All of the pop punk and emo stuff from like 2006 and onward, that was me, and I still live that. That's like somewhere deep in my heart. I'm just a mixture of all that music. Just turn on My Chemical Romance.
I was just
okay. I was like, give me a band. Tell me a band.
My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, The Used, especially like back right in like 2005, 2006, where where I started most of the works in progress that I have now. All of it has that music just infused into it. It's all this just like sadness but like anger at the same time, and like if you read it while listening to those albums you could see it. It's in there. It's like between the lines.
Yeah, mine are all like Katy Perry songs and Airborne Toxic Event.
That's an awesome comedy.
Airborne Toxic. Amy, do I even ask?
One more band. I'm trying to think.
The Doobie Brothers? What do we?
No. I have a lot of weird. When I was really like coming of age, I was obsessed with Van Halen.
Me.
I mean, like obsessed. I was so devastated when David Lee Roth quit the band.
My dogs are named Eddie and Alex for a reason.
There you go. And then I had sort of like a second. I guess, like, musical coming of age because we were doing some wireless products for Lollapalooza, and so I got really into, like, all those bands at the time. It was, like, Jane's Addiction and 30 Seconds to Mars was just coming on the scene.
I went to, like, one of the first big concerts they ever played. They were the starting band for somebody else. And then they went on to be famous.
Yeah, they were pretty awesome even back then. But like Rooney was a bigger band than them, and nobody knows where they are anymore. But I have to say, like, this obviously wouldn't be any kind of a lit chat if I didn't say that I have definitely experienced non-personal, but like somebody else's coming of age with, you know, the One Direction obsession, because these kids were like 17 and now they're sort of college age, and they, you know, music has grown and it's not so innocent anymore. And obviously it's just purely like it's purely as an audience person, but, you know, they had a member leave and people were flipping out, and it just
and a baby in the way, maybe, or no, or what?
Whatever.
I mean, we do have, like, sometimes
I like how
we do
Amy
grow up.
went from giving a fuck to whatever, yo.
I mean,
But
you
yeah,
guys don't really want to hear my theories about this. Nobody does. But
We do grow up with that media, you know, because, like, I was the age that you could go to Hogwarts when the first book came out. So, like, I grew up with those books, basically, and it, like, taught me so much about how to be human. I didn't know, but that book did, so I'm like, this thing, it knows what I am.
right. Yeah, you can absolutely grow up through other people's experience in books and in films and stuff. I read really adult books from a very young age, and I think that people always, it's a good question, like, do you think that influences how people feel about sex? Because a lot of people are like, no, you can't let them read that book because they're going to get too much of an education. And I kind of felt like, oh, I was reading all these books that weren't just YA, so people were having sex and there were all kinds of consequences. It wasn't just like pregnant or your friends in high school stopped talking to you. And I think that was a really good thing. And it definitely influenced me having access to all that material. But I don't know if I would want my daughter reading it now.
Right.
What was that
I was
movie?
never told. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, what was that movie? And I'm searching for the title. It was like Ethan Hawke and Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo and
Like the superhero movie? Like,
No. And Winona Ryder.
Winona Ryder.
Reality Bites.
Reality Bites. Okay,
Oh.
I saw that. I mean, obviously,
I
that
was thinking
like,
something totally different.
when I was a freshman. I think I was a freshman in high school. That movie came out, and I was like, I could not wait to go off to college. And like, this is like, it starts at their college graduation and trying to figure out their next moves and how to get a job and how to fall in love and all that stuff. And I was like, holy crap! Like, that is exactly like how things are, and I can't wait for that to happen to me. And then, you know, that was a little bit different in my time, but
So I actually
it's such a coming of age movie.
It is. I actually love that idea and that question, because there are definitely movies that you see that influence the way that you think something is going to be. And in fact, referencing like your story from earlier, Linz, with how you were out on your own, I remember I was like obsessed with St. Elmo's Fire, and those people were like so old and so beautiful and so successful. And I remember that there's a scene at the end of the movie where Mare Winningham's character is like very much that girl who was getting all her bills paid by her parents and had to do whatever they said because of it, and she finally breaks away and gets her own apartment, and she has this like really emotional speech about a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and waking up in the middle of the night and making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on her bread that she bought with her own money, and nobody could tell her, you know, whether she needed to eat it on a plate or a paper towel. And
Yep.
And that was like one of those things that I just kind of held on to. It symbolized adulthood for me. There were 800 other things that happened in that movie, but
Mm-hmm.
so
Well, I know. It was like I went to college, and it was like one of the first weeks. I was like, wait, everyone's listening to Destiny's Child. I thought everyone would be listening to like Toad the Wet Sprocket. What's going on here?
so for me, like, so Van Halen and all those guys, like the ZZ Top, like all the 80s rock music, like I listened to that through like junior high. And mostly because it was like passed down to me from my older siblings. I had 3 older siblings, and so they all listened to this stuff. Everything from the Beach Boys to Van Halen to all this stuff. And I loved it. Like, I just loved that music. But the music that sort of changed me and like made me realize, hey, I've got my own musical tastes and sensibilities was Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. I had it. You laugh at me. Here I am, like the white dude from Podunk, Oklahoma, like. But I mean, it just like I love that album. And my mom, bless her heart, like she's just the most tame person in the world, but she let me listen to this dang thing, and like, I mean, it was the uncensored version of it. And like, I lived in a very rural place and conservative place where like, you know, they ID'd everybody if you bought like an album that had like you remember the big parental advisory stickers?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I remember them.
Oh yeah, like they would ID
Exact
the
same
place.
experience as a kid.
I think my older brother bought it for me. I think I talked my older brother Brad into buying it for me. And I mean, I listened to that constantly. I had this, you know, great Pioneer stereo system with these 2 giant speakers, and I mean, I would jam that stuff, and every other word's the F-bomb and talking about, you know, this or that.
Yeah, and like I was into
changed
rap
me.
back
Like I
then too.
listened to that, and like I remember like my parents and some of my friends like shaking their head, like, "Oh, I can't believe you listen to this," and I'm like, "I think this is fucking awesome." And that's when I realized, I'm like, "Hey, I have my own musical taste. Like I like this." And honestly, I should have picked up on it earlier because I would listen to classical music and some stuff that my friends wouldn't listen to. I just have really, like, I have diverse musical tastes. I like to listen to a lot of different kinds of stuff. And that was really my first, like, clue, like, "Ooh, I'm that person." Like, yeah, I like rap. It's cool.
Yeah, it's like it's music that speaks to you in that moment. Because like when I got into my rap phase, like when I was maybe 13, like nobody in my family would want me to listen to that music, but I'm like, I like this, and they gave me a few albums, and it's just like this music is speaking to me in a certain way that I resonate with directly
Right.
because it feels like they're speaking directly to me. And once I learned that, music could speak directly to you, it's not like these bands from like 30 years ago who are speaking to someone. It's just like, that's it. I get it now. And
Right.
it helps
Yeah.
you.
And
be
to this
you.
day, I've analyzed it. I have no clue what Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style was actually saying to me. I could not have lived further from that life. But you're damn right. It spoke to me, and it was my jam, man. I love that. A buddy of mine, we can still like quote every word to every song. I saw Snoop this summer. Actually, I watched him at a concert, and he's fantastic.
The two CDs I listened to the most in college, which I actually own real CDs of, which was kind of weird, was Green Day's American Idiot and Death Cab for Cutie's, is it Plans?
Plans was after
Yeah.
transatlanticism.
Yeah, the one that's the rock opera. So that's Plans. Yeah, okay. Sorry, headache. It's melting my brain. And I used to listen to them just like back to back, like constantly. Also, the musical soundtrack for the play Rent.
That was a big one for a while, for sure.
Um,
I had a moment, there was a few months that Evan had moved from California when I was still living there, and we weren't talking a lot because he was busy with a new job and we were on different time zones. And I was listening nonstop to like the Counting Crows and the Beastie Boys.
Yes.
Like Hello Nasty. I mean,
Yes.
permanently. And I have such mixed emotions about that because on the one hand, like that album represents this time that was kind of unhappy, but the flip side is it makes me like so happy to listen to it now because it's so like it was such a dramatic, it was such an emotional time that now that I have some distance from it, it's just like, I don't know if entertaining is the right word, but I don't know. Like I still really like it even though it should probably make me sad. And I think that, that's also part of like growing up and categorizing the things that you can live with and the ones that need to get tossed by the wayside because, they're no longer of value to you.
yeah, like I'm a very happy person, but one of the, a lot of the music that I listen to is not happy. Like horrible things happen to the people in them, and they're really tragic. And I don't know why I like them, but I do.
Maybe it's giving you like a vicarious like unhappiness.
Exactly. It's like Game of Thrones in music form. We don't watch Game of Thrones to feel happy. We watch it to feel very unhappy.
That's just pretty much everything on the BBC.
Basically. Well, use it to feel better
like,
about your life.
You watch it just to have somebody rip your heart out that you will never meet.
So EJ, I haven't really been able to catch much of what is on Twitter, but have we gotten any good examples of what people really like to listen to or what they are thinking about for new projects coming up that maybe, have been coming of age moments that now they want to write about?
Yeah, PK Rezo said that she was coming of age right when the movie Singles came out, and looking back, she's like, that totally captured like the early '90s life. And
I don't know this movie.
Book Duchess says that one of her favorite songs as a teen was "Cry Little Sister" from the Lost Boys. My mother hated it and wouldn't let me listen to it. Yeah, I think that's huge too. Like I think that's why I think that's why Snoop Dogg spoke to me because it was like the first thing that I knew really knew my parents would not approve of. And they weren't like, my dad would have put the kibosh on it had he actually paid attention to what the lyrics were, what they were saying. But mom was like, she grew up like she was kind of the musical rebel. Like she grew up listening to the Beatles and the Stones, And I remember her explaining to me even like when I was younger that like the song "Wooly Bully," like
Oh
like
yeah.
there was like a huge controversy over that and like what it meant and like just
I actually know what that song is.
right. And but so like there's all this stuff, so I think I just had it in my genes or whatever. But yeah, I mean Twitter's got tons of stuff. I'm gonna ask Twitter and I'll ask you guys right now.
Wait, wasn't that in like the Chipmunks animated movie?
Oh dear.
Probably. Probably. Cat knows it. I'm sure it was.
Wait, what song is this again?
Woolly bully, woolly bully.
Yes,
Watch
yes,
me now, watch
they're
me now.
dancing with the cannibal people in like
Right.
the jungle.
It's been in a lot of movies.
I was gonna ask Twitter. I'm gonna ask you guys. What do you think these movies and books? Like we're quoting, like Singles and The Lost Boys and some of these different movies. And I just did a whole post in a Next Lit chat in the Next Lit newsletter about 80s movies, like the most influential 80s movies, the like sort of coming of age ones for me growing up. What is the secret ingredient to these timeless books? Like I don't have a doubt that Harry Potter, our kids are going to read this and it's going to influence them. Like it's going to be one of those book series that is going to last, like generationally last. So what do you guys think that the secret ingredient is to that? Like why is that? Like why do some books or movies or music even, like why does it, like the Beatles, they're timeless. Every generation is going to listen to Beatles and be like, yeah, that's pretty good. Why? What is that? Do we pass that down subconsciously? Are we like influencing our kids saying like you better damn well like the Beatles because if you don't you're stupid?
We
No.
definitely do influence to a degree. Like everyone told me to like the Beatles, and for the longest time I just didn't like them. But I figured it out eventually, like once I matured. But back then I was just like, this is kind of dumb. And we just find again that things that just resonate with us, things that are speaking directly to us. Like for me, Harry Potter spoke to me. Lots of those young adult books that were early on spoke directly to me as a young person. So I just related to them immediately, and those became these, like Harry Potter. When Harry Potter first came out, it was just a book about a wizard, and everyone's like, that's evil and satanic, and now we're like, that's one of the best series that ever exists. That's pretty good.
I think there's actually like a ricochet effect. I think that there's a natural instinct part of growing up and becoming independent, like music and books. That's some of the first. Those are some of the first ways that you can flex muscles. You don't like the Beatles simply because your parents did, and they might be the greatest band in the world, but you have to identify as an individual. That's part of what you're going through in those years. So you can come around to it later when you're not fighting that battle of becoming independent and separating yourself. But you literally can't appreciate it then because it goes against everything else that you're trying to do.
Exactly. That was like my brain being spoken for. Like I just wanted to listen to music that nobody listened to because nobody listened to it. So I'm like, I need to do this. And eventually,
with books, actually the Harry Potter books, because they were popular, I wouldn't read them. I didn't read them until I was in college. Because so many people are like, oh, you need to read this, and I'm just kind of like, no, I'm good.
PK on Twitter actually, and this was back when I was talking about Snoop Dogg, but she's like finding your own music is part of the coming of age experience. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Like that's part of it. Like that's part of defining who you are and what you are and all those things. And I came full circle. Like I came back to the Beatles and the Stones and all these things that maybe some of the stuff I didn't think was like some of the old school country music that my dad would listen to in the car on road trips that I could not stand, like Hank Williams and all that stuff. But now I play it. Like I play guitar and I play Hank Williams songs and I love them. So I think you do eventually come around. But I agree totally. I think it's just part of that growing up.
I think it comes down to also like positive and negative influences. So in a positive way, your parents play Hank Williams, or your friends all want to listen to Snoop, or One Direction, or whatever it is, or you're listening to music, something on the radio that's played 25 times in an hour, and you're like, okay, so you have all these positive influences, things that you hear all the time that you just naturally like because you get used to hearing it. But then also, it's the, whose parents didn't really want them to listen. Maybe our parents didn't let them listen to Beatles because they thought that was going to make them do drugs or any kind of punk rock or whatever. Like if there's something that you're told not to do, you naturally want to do it. So if there's music that you are told you can't listen to Eminem because of he wants to kill his mom or whatever, you're naturally going to be like, oh, I have to now go on YouTube and look up all of my Eminem that I want to listen to, or I've got to find out about this person. So I think that it comes from just environmental influences, I guess, and then maybe even natural curiosity.
Well, and I think also, I mean, I know for me, I was so proud of myself when I first figured out like how to learn about bands that my parents didn't know about. Like it was a big, it was planting a big flag in independence. It was like things that, your parents know everything. They tell you what to do. They know what's going to work. They know it's not going to work. And then all of a sudden, you have access to something, even though it's entertainment, whatever that may be, that they don't know about. And it's really powerful, even though it's not, life-changing. It feels like it is at the time.
I just remember on MTV, like this is before any kind of app or any kind of anything on the internet. I mean, the internet was around in high school, but for me, but not the way it is for high schoolers now. But I remember on MTV, Kurt Loder would always find these amazing bands that were new, and like Silverchair, like I was introduced to Silverchair via Kurt Loder, and it would be like this little 30-second blurb that he'd be like, oh yeah, Kurt Loder, MTV News, like I'm looking at this new band right now or whatever, and I would find a way to look it up, or I would just go and actually like buy the CD. And he was, I don't know if he and I had the same kind of musical taste, but I'd be like, oh my god, I love Silverchair, this is amazing, So that's how I found music when I was in high school.
I don't know, I never had that experience, but I also didn't have like an environment or parents who told me I couldn't do things.
So like we're reaching some milestones here in Next Lit Chat tonight. We just found Kurt Loder's biggest fan.
Yeah. I don't even know who that is. I've seen it.
I didn't even know.
Really old guy, so now he's
like
100, but he was like the old MTV News
right.
guy, like the editor of the MTV News, whatever,
Wait, they used to have news on MTV?
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen it twice. I saw
before Disney owned it.
That was it. My whole life.
Disney owned it. It was something beyond reality TV, as they had.
Yeah, it used to be really good. It used to be all like music and like cool shows, and then they're like, let's show reality TV 24/7.
I don't know. I the first and like one of two times that I ever watched MTV, I saw the music video for Black Hole Sun.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. Soundgarden.
Yeah. That's a classic video.
That is classic.
So it's like 10:04, and I feel like we could keep talking about this forever.
Right, we probably ought to wind it down.
Because it's awesome and it's influential, and one of the reasons that we create is to give people experiences that maybe they don't have in their regular lives, or maybe we just need to get the stories out. I think probably a combination of both. But I personally am excited about this new chapter for, NA Lit Chat, which again now is Next Lit Chat. I love how expansive it is, and I love learning about you guys and extending that into our community, learning about, everybody through this lens that is kind of more innocent maybe than just new adult, because it really does give permission to talk about all those other times instead of just sneaking them in on the sides of conversations. So I think this was fun tonight. Do you guys have any last thoughts that you want to wrap up with?
I am trying to figure... Yes, talk for like 2 seconds and I'll have something for you.
Okay, eject.
What does that mean?
Because I'm trying to think of something.
Yeah, no, I think this chat tonight, I'm just about to tweet it out. Like, it totally sums up everything we've talked about tonight, sums up why I write coming-of-age fiction, like why I'm so obsessed with it. And the whole, new adult, upper YA, whatever that transition is, like, this is it. Like, it meant so much to me. Like, it still means so much to me. Like, these bands, like I said, my God, I saw Snoop Dogg this summer. He's like 60. He's like 60 now. But, like, it just meant so, it really changed me into who I am, and I'm so appreciative of that and respectful of that experience that I want to write about it. Like, I want to capture that, and I want to, I don't know if help's the right word, but like I want to be able to write things that maybe other people can either read and remember that time in their lives and maybe capture some of that spirit, or, help somebody that's going through it, like sort of identify and be like, hey, this is something that people go through. Like, this is what we do. Like, we figure life out. That's what happens.
Because growing up is, the details are unique, but growing up is universal.
I came up with my thing.
Yeah.
Bumper sticker right there.
I was going to say that if anyone is interested or looking for something to read that, I mean, it came out a couple years ago, but something that I really love, one of our old good friends, I guess it was Lit Chat, now next Lit Chat, Ashley Poston, she wrote something called The Sound of Us.
Oh, I love that book.
And it's such a good book, and I think I've read this like 2 or 3 times, but I mean, kind of speaking about music and how music changes us and influences us, and I mean, without saying more too much, whatever, that kind of is really a good book to kind of go on from our Lit Chat tonight. It's a good read.
Is that the one where the girl's a runner and it has time travel?
Nah, she like works in a bar and she meets a rocker dude.
Oh, well, that sounds cool. Oh,
It's really good.
Okay, wait, no, I know which book this is.
It's really, really good, and also, with her dad, I mean, there's just a lot of kind of influence and stuff like that. So anyway, it's an easy read and a fun read, but she's a great writer. We love her anyway, but I would recommend, if you haven't picked up that book, that would be a fun something to read over the weekend. So those were my 2 cents I wanted to put in.
Well, thank you guys so much, and thank you to everybody who is listening to us. Thank you to Lindsay Lewis and Kat Vansel and Chris Fox, and thank you to E.J. Wesley, who not only created the inaugural and the older NA Lit Chat, but was part of the team that rebranded this and sort of developed what we've come into. And I hope you guys have a good night. I'm Amy Evans, and we'll see you guys back here next time.
See
Have a
ya.
great day.
Bye.